Hello and welcome to a live pop culture on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. We started early. Can you guys
What?
believe it?
The sun's still out.
We just decided to, yeah, the sun's still out. We knew that you would think we were going to be late like usual. So I said, let's just go early. Then they never know what to expect.
Yeah, tricks on you, chat.
Welcome. If it's your first time here, this is a Wednesday night show that we do. My name is Keri Smith. I'm here with Mystery Chris, my co-host. We do a show about pop culture and we delve into very specific topics and kind of go down a rabbit hole. And so tonight we are talking about gangster films, mobster films, and their impact on Italian American culture, Italian American identity, and how we think of Italian Americans and Italians in general. And, you know what's funny? This topic, I think this is a guy topic. Maybe I should do a poll since we're here early. I have time to do it. I have time to do a poll. Really, because every guy I know loves gangster movies. And when you told me about this one, I was like, okay. But I could already tell, like, you know a lot more about these films than I do, and you like them a lot more than I do. I mean, I like them, but I don't really, I'm like, meh.
We can
And
make some Golden Girls talking in
we
between.
mix in some Golden Girls. Can you imagine if the Golden Girls were a mob? That's like
Hey, that was a good idea. Someone should probably recut like a trailer of the Golden Girls. That'd be hilarious.
picture it, Sicily. Capiche? Well, I think this bears out though. I do think it's more of a guy kind of genre in general. Because remember back to the episode we did about true crime, and we were looking at statistics, and it's true that women consume more content about true crime than men do. Women read more true crime books, they watch more true crime documentaries and television series, docuseries, and but within the true crime genre, there is one subgenre that men watch and read more than women, and that's anything having to do with mobs or gangs, mobsters and stuff. That kind of true crime is more popular with men. Isn't that that's kind of interesting? Why do you think that is?
I think mob, gangs, and war, because men tend to be more concerned in general, speaking generalities, but in general are more concerned with larger events, and especially ones that involve other men that are trying to vie for some kind of, either a real estate or some kind of money or something that they're all fighting over. I think men in general, because of our natures, are interested in that kind of thing. And I think with a lot of gangster films, especially with The Godfather, which we'll talk about, which I love, I think there's a certain fantasy, a revenge fantasy almost, because not all gangster movies have feature gangsters that are Machiavellian geniuses. But I think the ones that people tend to like the most, particularly for myself, are ones where you have characters that are really great at designing plans to take out their enemies. I think there's something just really satisfying about that, and I think that's something
Yeah.
a lot of us men kind of gravitate towards, because it's the same thing like with war. The tactics that are done in war is something that interests a lot of men.
War. You thank you for bringing that up. That was the other one. True crime. Men read more about war as well. Like the group tactics. I think you're right. There's something there about the
Because
yeah,
it's like in the past when men had to fight off other invading tribes that are trying to take their women or resources, they had to get smart and find out ways to defeat their enemies, prevent that from happening. So there's still part of our nature that I think still enjoys watching movies and shows that have to deal with stuff like that.
are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you cut off at the end.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, so yeah, when I was saying that, yeah, men in general, I think are kind of interested in that kind of stuff because of back in the day, where men had to fend off invading tribes who were trying to take their women and take their property and resources. And I think there's just aspect of our nature that still stems from that long history of having to defend your tribe against an invading tribe.
That sounds good to me. This is a good hypothesis, in my opinion, as
Yeah.
as to why men seem to like gangster films more. I was at a conference once. It was one of the Myth Informed conferences, and backstage, it was at a big theater in Fort Worth, And in the green room, so there's usually music acts performing there, I think. And in the green room, they had all these different mobster posters. They had the Sopranos, and they had Godfather, and they had Scarface, and you know, different guys who were at, a part of the conference as well. Were taking pictures in front of the posters. It was funny. It's like, oh yeah, guys love this. Poll.
It's funny. I was going to save this anecdote for the Scarface thing, which I know Scarface is not Italian, but Scarface, you got to talk about Scarface. But years ago, I was at a ghetto mall in Houston, and not all of them are ghetto. Stop, you're joking. But I was at a ghetto mall in Houston, and a lot of black people there. And I saw a kiosk where somebody was selling art. There were all these beautifully done colored pencil drawings of famous black authors and politicians. You have Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Barbara Jordan and all these famous people, all black except for one. It was Tony Montana.
That was the one.
It was the only non-black person part of this kiosk. And it just said something too, not just the fact that he was the only non-black person there, but like all these other black people there were like politicians and poets and people that actually contributed something. But you have a fictional character people love because he's so violent.
And they knew, well, since we're talking about our gangster and mobster films more of a guy thing, are they also more of a black thing than a white thing? I don't think so.
Black people, we love gangster films. And it's odd because particularly like the non-black ones, particularly the Italian ones, like most of those mobsters are super racist. Like there's explicit scenes in there where they drop N-bombs. Like, and even The Godfather, which one of my favorite movies. There's a what's it like when they're talking about selling drugs to the blacks, and one of them says they're animals, let them lose their souls. I was like, I still love this movie. What's wrong with me?
You're like, I can't stop watching it, even though.
Yeah, but I mean, these gangster films featured a kind of a rags to riches story, and it featured a lot of outsiders, people who either felt that the system failed them or that they can't succeed in the system for whatever reason, and they're gaming it, finding a way to cheat their way to the top, getting status and money by playing this deadly game. And that's something that a lot of black people like.
Would you say you think it's more popular among black men than white men, gangster films? Because I think
I don't know about that. I mean, there's a lot more white men than black men, but
I think it's just
in terms of music, like
obviously,
rap music, plenty of rappers name themselves after either real gangsters or fictional gangsters, and lots of references to gangster movies.
Yeah. Well, we've got some articles pulled up about some of this stuff, guys. We have some clips queued up. We started a little bit early, a couple minutes early. Can you believe it? So we figured we'd just chat a bit before we get right into it. If it's your first time here, like I said, this is a live show that we do every other Wednesday. We talk about pop culture. We pick one specific topic. If you like the show, please hit like, consider leaving a comment, and thank you to the people who support the channel through super chats and subscriptions here at YouTube or at Rumble with Rumble Rants or Patreon, Locals, and Subscribestar. I have to say a quick apology to the Rumble folks, and I have to say an apology because we just started simulcasting there a few months ago, and I'm still getting the hang of it. And something happened with the stream. I was trying to get ahead of the week, and I uploaded all the different streams for this week, or the placeholder, the announcement, right? And somehow the date was wrong on there, and so there were a ton of people saying, "Where's the stream?" 2 days ago, and I apologize. So I had to recreate it. So we're currently simulcasting on Rumble. But if you're watching over there, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that it showed up a couple days ago when that wasn't the case. So, oh yeah, there's like 268 people over there. Okay, right on. Where should we start? Should we start with a clip? Oh, wait. One quick announcement. Book club is tomorrow. Deprogrammed Book Club. We are going to be discussing The Queering of the American Child by Logan Lansing and James Lindsay. I've gotten emails from several of you already, and you should already have the link. It's going to be a private Zoom conversation, a panel, and you can be on camera, you can turn your camera off, but just it's 6 o'clock tomorrow. 6 o'clock tomorrow, which is Thursday, June 6th, 6 o'clock Central Time, I should say. And just send me an email if you want to be a part of it at deprogrammedpod@gmail.com, and I'll get you the Zoom link as well. I think that's it. Oh, and one last announcement. If you're planning on going to the Rippaverse meetup this Saturday in Dallas, Rippaverse, FNT, Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, I think I am going to be there. So some people were asking me and I wasn't sure if I had to work. I'm not on the schedule currently. So I'm going to be there unless something changes with my work. I hope to see some of you guys in person. I always love these meetups. They're so much fun. So, okay. One other quick thing. Can I just show you this before we get started with the topic?
What is that?
So Tiger and I we're attending an event, and I needed a corn costume for him, but I couldn't find any good ones online. So I made this. Look, I made this. I went to Hobby Lobby.
Wow.
And it's a corn on the cob costume. And
That's
look,
good.
Isn't it pretty good? Look, and I took a t-shirt, and then I put these little Velcro snaps on it, and I got a little belt to go around him that also Velcro attaches. But when he wears this, so it's like this. Hold on. Like that. His head's right here, right? He's a corn dog. Get it?
Womp womp. How does Tiger feel about this?
He loves it. He had to model it like 20 times. Yeah, and he was eager to do so. Because when I was measuring it and trying to get it right, I had to keep putting it on him. No, he did not. He was like, he's the most tolerant dog. He loves me, and he's like, okay, whatever.
Give me food. All right.
Yeah. So I anyway, there you go. Corny costume. I was proud of it though. I was proud of how it turned out. So I had to.
Yeah. You should probably start selling stuff like that. Open up an Etsy store.
None of your business. He feels humiliated. Okay, you know what? I saw him rolling in poop the other day, and I had to bring him inside and give him a shower. So I doubt that wearing a corn costume is more humiliating than rolling in some kind of wild animal species. Yeah.
Like I knew he rolled around in like dead animals. You told me that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this was poop or dead animal. Either way, it was disgusting. I got an immediate bath. Yeah. I don't know why dogs do. He's not the only dog that does that. They like to make themselves smell bad. So, I got to keep an eye on him.
Maybe he's rebelling because of all these costumes you put him in. I'll show you, Mom.
No, he's down with it. He has his own Instagram. He likes the pictures. He puts them up there. Okay. He wants people to see him. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the topic. We're talking about gangster films, Italian American culture, Italian American identity. Should we start with a clip?
Yeah, let's start a little bit. You want to pull up the trailer for Public Enemy?
Yeah.
Not sure how much you're going to actually play with the audio. I think it's on Warner Brothers official site, so I probably wouldn't take chances with this one.
Yeah.
But this one is from 1931. One of the 3 biggest gangster films from that time. This one stars James Cagney. So it's like this movie, Little Caesar, and the original Scarface, which pretty similar to the remake, but that one, the original had an Italian in it, which upset a lot of Italians back then. But we'll talk a little about Public Enemy first. I want to mute it a little now.
A strange, mad story from the pages of life. Tremendous. Amazing in its realism. Gripping. Compelling. Human? Is that what it says? A few scenes cannot do justice to the most powerful picture of the year.
There's a lot of reading in trailers back then.
The Public Enemy.
So this movie came out before the Hays Code. We did an episode a long time ago on the Hays Code, self-imposed regulations by motion picture companies, and this was coming on the heels of a lot of people being upset at the amount of violence in movies, and so for Public Enemy, but even though it was before the Hays Code, they still had to add something to the end of the film that showed that they weren't trying to glorify gangsters. And so, if you want to pull this
Oh,
up, this is at the very end.
so interesting. You guys, if you missed our video about the Hays Code, pop culture Hays Code, go look it up. It's so interesting because they had all these moral rules with movies where if they showed certain things, they had to explain it or be very clear that they weren't pushing something. It's funny because the woke are trying to do something similar now, but with their morality, with the woke morality. So they're trying to add things to old films now where it's, it's like the homophobia in this film was, they're trying to add this commentary now, but with their religion, their morality.
Yeah, there was a lot of heat on filmmakers back then, where a lot of them were being accused of glorifying gangsters, and so they had to make it clear that their characters were bad people, and that they had to show that they couldn't get away with crime. That crime does not, equal success, because they don't want to be contributing to the downfall of the youth. But yeah, here's the very last part, or in the last scene of the movie. Sorry to spoil everyone, but he right after he dies, and
Okay. You spoiled
nearly
it.
100-year spoiler. But if you want
You
to
had
read,
100 years to watch. Just quickly, thank you, Robert. Give it up for Robert Lowry, one of our mods. He dropped the link for the Hays Code video if you guys want to go check it out. Okay, let's see this. Should I
it
read
just
this
shows
out
this for
loud?
like you don't have to play it. You can just read it because it fades in the credits in just a moment.
Okay. So they put this up in the final scene. The end of Tom Powers is the end of every hoodlum. The public enemy is not a man, nor is it a character. It is a problem that sooner or later we, the public, must solve.
Can you
Wow.
reread that in a gangster voice?
I can't do voices like you can. I'm gonna let you do it. Here.
No, it's more fun when you do it.
I can't. No, everybody
You
will
just gotta
laugh
put
at me for the wrong
after
reason.
every word.
The end of Tom Powers. See, is the end of
Yeah.
every hoodlum. Is that okay?
Yeah.
The public enemy is not a man. See?
Yeah, see now.
Yeah. No, is it a character? It is a problem that sooner or later we, the public, must solve. You,
And we didn't. Yeah.
yeah.
1930 is similar to the 70s. We'll get into it with the Godfather and the emergence of newer gangster films. I think there was a fascination with the real thing, but also with the movies, because I think there was a great deal of disillusionment with the economic institutions in the 1930s. And then there was a fascination with people who were able to kind of game that system, especially when it came to prohibition and, distributing. Some people thought they were flat out criminals. Some people thought they were doing some kind of good. But there was fascination with that, and I think that became something that grew in the 1970s after um, all the political assassinations you saw in the 60s. You had Vietnam War. You would have Watergate, where a lot of people, started to mistrust the government, where a lot of people started to no longer believe in the quote unquote American dream, or no longer understand what America stood for, because there was a clear idea what a lot of Americans they had a clear idea of what America stood for after World War II, when Nazis were defeated and America slash capitalism was the new global power. But as you start seeing the new left come about in the 1960s and the rise of pluralism, I think that kind of fractured that consensus that existed back then, and it just left a lot of people not really believing in the system and even in goodness. I think in a lot of ways, and I think that's where you see the emergence of a lot of these anti-heroes,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we get into Godfather and on, because the Godfather and Some of these other movies came afterwards, featured these very morally complex characters, and that was something that was very fascinating to a lot of people who had some kind of moral code, but it wasn't quite the morality of yesteryear. And they, even though they did horrible things, they still had some redeeming qualities, which is why we, the viewers, were invested in their stories, which is weird. It's almost like with Scarface, the Tony Montana one, where he's supposed to kill somebody, but the guy has his wife and kids with him, and he chooses not to kill them because he doesn't kill women and children, and he ends up paying the price for that, wherein he gets assassinated, and in a weird kind of way. That's kind of a redeeming quality, which is weird to say, like choosing not to kill someone, but I think it comes across that way in this kind of moral structure that many of these mobster movies have.
I read a couple things about this, about some of the stuff you're talking about, the American dream, um and how the mobster movies sort of corrupted what had up until then had been the way that the American dream was depicted in film. And this might be a good, I know we want to get to another clip, but this might be a good place to show you this. This is a paper, a thesis written about the American dream and Italian American stereotypes in mobster films. And I thought this part here at the very end was interesting. He says, these films communicate a corrupt version of the American dream myth, which focuses on power over morality. Because the films are so popular, gangster genre films communicate to a large audience that the success promised by the American dream is attainable through illegal means. As the films reinforce the success myth over the moralistic myth, it is possible for people to internalize the corrupt myth. As a result, the movies contribute to shaping the way that America is viewed by outsiders as well as Americans. Myths do not have to be accurate to be believed. This research indicates how the myth is constructed in the gangster genre, a popular genre seen by many people. And then just one more part here. This research provides significant insight into our society and what we value. Because the myth is a main component of the gangster genre, it demonstrates America's desire for material wealth over moralistic success. The fact that the gangster is her or his own ultimate demise demonstrates their failure to achieve the legitimate American dream. However, the lure of easy money, power, and the trappings of the gangster lifestyle have long attracted Americans to the big screen and the little screen. The point of these films may ultimately be that wealth and power unchecked by the respect for all people taught by the moralistic myth of the American dream leads to failure. But that point never seems to be the aspect of these bloody genres that is celebrated in our popular culture. Instead, it's the images of brutal power and the trappings of wealth that accompany the gangster lifestyle that are celebrated in the visible aspects of our popular culture in posters and t-shirts. And they go on to talk a little bit, I know you want to talk about this later, but how it relates to gangster rap and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff that's celebrated in gangster rap. But I thought that was interesting. And there was also, I'm going to stop showing that now, but there was one other thing I was reading. I think this will come up when we get to the part about how Italian Americans view these films. And I found this one piece by an Italian American who I think is actually in the minority, who's sort of like a woke scold. And the whole piece is like, we've come so far in righting all these different wrongs against marginalized people, but what about the Italians? And he mentioned something anecdotally about how when he travels abroad and people find out he's Italian American, they make jokes about the mob, and that's really offensive to him.
Well,
But
see, that's one of the interesting things about it. Finding out about the various reactions that Italian Americans had towards gangster films. Like when I was talking earlier about the original Scarface, there were some Italian activist organizations in 1930s that were lobbying the state of Massachusetts not to allow that film to be shown because they felt that the film was promoting this idea that Italians were criminals and that they all just wanted, wealth at all, any cost. And I just found that fascinating to think that with that movie and so many other movies, that came afterwards, a lot of the filmmakers, and we'll get to this, and we talk about the Godfather, but a lot of filmmakers felt that they need to make statements how their film wasn't promoting ideas that Italians were criminals or dangerous or anything. And to me, it seems so foreign growing up in a time when most Americans, from my perspective, white Americans, weren't identifying based on their ethnic past, their ancestors' past. They didn't, say, "Oh, I'm Italian American, I'm German American." Most white Americans, when I was growing up, and still today, I think, just say they're white. It's just they identify as white. But back then, that was a huge thing because you think about like JFK getting elected, Irish Catholic, like that was a huge thing, and there were a lot of people who didn't vote for him simply because of those reasons. And to me, that seems ridiculous, but at the time, that was a major thing. And so putting these things in perspective, I think is really fascinating, understanding that and seeing how the views towards that from Italian Americans and non-Italian Americans has grown or changed. Because like you just said, there still are a number of Italian Americans who are against gangster films, that still don't like a lot of the ideas that they promoted. Because I was reading one article that they said that somebody did apparently, I didn't check the study, so the numbers seem ridiculous, but they said apparently like 74% of the people polled thought that all Italians were like in the mafia. And I was like, that's really? I never once thought that, ever
No.
since finding out about gangsters. I always thought the, mobsters were a very small minority. There was no reason for me to believe that most Italians were in the mob or knew mobsters. And I don't understand where some of
I
these
think
people are
it's
still
like
having that.
one of the statistics I saw when I was reading, and this is in one of the articles I had pulled up somewhere, so we might come across it, was that it's like
Mm-hmm.
0.0025%. It's about as many people as, who genuinely have gender dysphoria are
Yeah.
in the mob.
Yeah.
But the media portrays it very differently. That makes
And,
sense
and
that
again, I
people would
think it's
think that.
interesting too, because I had also found an article from one of the Italian American activist organizations. And it's interesting thinking about today how there are these activist groups and activists who are upset about the way the Italians are still portrayed in the media. Because right now there's such an emphasis on avoiding stereotypes for Blacks, Hispanics, any kind of non-white, group. Hollywood will go out of the way to try to, even though they still do from time to time, but they try to avoid doing these stereotypes. There's a hyper obsession with it. And I always find it fascinating when I see, groups like this, white ethnic group that, there are members of there that are still very concerned about the ways that they are portrayed. Because it seems like to me, like now, that the major stereotypes for white people are more white Southerners, where all
Yes.
white Southerners are portrayed as dumb and marrying their
Oh,
sisters and all that. What? Go
but
ahead.
but there are people who are upset about these so-called stereotypes. I mean, they are
Yeah,
stereotypes, but who
yeah.
don't laugh it off in good fun. This is a funny comment from Ann Pinkova. Hey, Ann Pinkova from Politically Incorrect Knitters. I got to hang out with those ladies yesterday. She's in the chat. She says, "You know how gangster movies make Italians look cool? Well, it's a lie." Look, I was going to save this one till later, but I just want to read you. I'm too excited to read you some of this one really quick. Is this okay? Here we go.
Yeah.
Hollywood's mafia
This is what I
hypocrisy.
found too. Yeah, read this. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. By the way, because I've had the windows open with the fans going, there's a fly that got in here and it's driving me crazy. So if you see me doing this,
Tiger, do your job.
I want him out. I was staining I told you this before. I guess I didn't say it on video, but I was not staining. I was doing the top coat of the floor yesterday and today, and this place is full of fumes, and I've got a headache, and the windows are open, and I'm trying to get all the fumes out of here.
Don't pass out
So
on
I'm trying
stream.
not to pass out, but if I say something crazy, it's probably because I breathed in all these fumes. Okay, here we go.
If I say anything racist, it's the fumes.
Here we go. Hollywood's mafia hypocrisy. A study of Tinseltown's ironic reliance on mafia tropes and Italian American stereotypes. This guy, man, he's upset. We live in a culture. We live in a culture where
We live in a culture.
we live in a culture where stereotyping and the inclusion of individuality is demanded. A negative word or action against religion, physicality, sexual orientation, or race will cripple a person's reputation. Friends, associates, and organizations will distance themselves from the pariah as not to be considered guilty by association. The repercussion is both immediate and feared, and no one understands this more than celebrities. And so he includes a bunch of examples of cancellations. He's excited about this, by the way, the cancellations. Hollywood sits at the center of this movement by adhering to a no tolerance policy. If its members are accused of inappropriate behavior, they face severe consequences regarding how long a storied career they may have enjoyed, regardless of how long a career they may have enjoyed. In fact, Hollywood's so committed to setting an example, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced a new inclusion standard for Best Picture eligibility that began phasing in this year. The statute mandates that a film cannot be nominated for Best Picture unless it has met 2 of the following 4 newly created standards. They have to set specific requirements regarding the inclusion of underrepresented ethnic groups in regards to all these different roles. And they have to address guidelines in the areas of marketing, publicity, distribution, and paid apprenticeships. Like they have to do some DEI crap to be even considered. Underrepresented groups are characterized as, and it's the usual list, right? Okay, now here we get into his grievance. Yet underneath Hollywood's polished identity lies a vast history of inscrutable racism and bigotry. They are profiteers of creating and propagating a stereotypical view of Italian Americans as either criminals or unintelligent, uneducated, unrefined individuals who curse profusely and constantly eat. And there's no reason to believe this injustice will end because business is good. I love that he calls it injustice, that they show them as Italian Americans or individuals who constantly eat. This is an injustice.
Eat the meatballs.
This pizza injustice will not stand. Stop showing us eating lasagna.
Delicious lasagna.
This guy sounds like he would be really fun at dinner parties. You're just trying to have a good time, and he's like, the bigotry against Italian Americans in film is gone on too long.
But can you, like, blame him in terms of there being such an emphasis on non-white minorities and expressing grievances and stuff, that naturally that's going to cause a blowback where you're going to have a lot of white people either view themselves as white or to a smaller ethnic portion, and start lobbying based on that because they're seeing all these other groups artificially progress themselves up the social and economic hierarchy because of their identity and their stated grievances. So it just seems obviously that this type of thing is going to happen more and more.
Yes. Well, 2 things there to answer your question. Yes. Number 1, I agree with him that there's this grievance culture that exists, and this ridiculous racist, sexist culture where it's like the loudest grievances get must be paid attention to, and it's all based on social justice and woke ideology, which is about racial groups and other identity groups, whatever identity group you can claim is marginalized. My thing is that all of that is bad. His thing is like, it's only bad because my group is not being included as one of the ones that's paid attention to. Like he's cool with this happening. He just wants his grievance group to be paid attention to. And the other thing is that you're right, is that it is creating, there's an incentive for people to try and find some way in which they are part of a marginalized group so that they can complain as well, right? And call attention to themselves and all this. I think it sets up a really bad incentive for that. So this guy's just taking advantage of the ideology to say, look at me. There's an injustice against me and meatballs.
And to piggyback on that, can you pull up real quick before we get back to the movies? Can you pull up the first link? If you scroll down where I have in the notes website, and this is the website it's the New York chapter of that group. I think it's Italian Sons and Daughters of America.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you this real quick, show you the website. So this is the Italian Sons and Daughters. So, okay, look. All right. Wait, go looking at that. All right. So Okay, so maybe there's another Italian. Oh wait, no, he's
Wait,
not
is it
Italian.
why is it all black people? I was like, there's like black. Wait, what?
Maybe they're wearing those stock photos of white Italians that they can get. So we just find some random black people.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so that's doing well, doing well.
doing well. Well, you know who's underrepresented in Italian Americans? Black people.
Which, hey, some people like. I actually think there are some Italians that kind of look black, so
Right.
maybe you can do it. Because like, didn't they think Johnny Cash's his wife, or how many times he got married? Probably got married 3 times, but one of his wives, they thought the media thought she was black, and so a lot of people were sending him hate mails like, "How dare you marry that
Yes.
N word?" All that. Someone else, Dan Bongino. I always thought he was black, but he's not. He's like Italian.
That's so funny. That's really funny. There was also Ann Pinkova points out there was also a ginger in those photos. A
How'd he get
ginger.
in there?
Even the blonde chick doesn't look very Italian, she says. Yeah. Couple of funny things from the chat. when Adam Worrell, you break my heart with the stereotypes. And Robert Lowry, it's a me, a Mario.
Yeah, Mario.
I'm surprised Mario hasn't been canceled yet.
Yeah, soon enough. Well, didn't John Leguizamo try? He was complaining that there weren't, I guess, some Hispanic voices or something in the Mario movie.
Yes,
Even
you're
though he
right.
was,
That
isn't he Puerto
whiny
Rican? And he
little,
played
yeah.
Luigi. Yeah.
I forgot about him. He's so whiny. Yes. Which is funny because I seem to recall him playing gay characters and drag queens and other he's played identity parts that he don't represent him.
Yep, but that don't matter. Yeah. Let's talk about some Godfather. Yeah.
Well, this is, I mean, we obviously have to start the show with this.
This is, I think it's still the #1 movie on IMDb. In fact, I'm gonna check right now. I don't
The
think it's been
Godfather?
Yeah, pretty sure it still is.
Think I'm gonna get in trouble for this music?
Just me unmuted, just in case. I mean, I've seen videos where they've played that music and it has it, but YouTube.
I'll play just a couple more seconds and then you guys can hum the rest.
Oh. I was actually wrong. Shawshank Redemption took the top spot over The Godfather.
Oh, I'm shocked, actually. I thought. So this movie, what does this movie mean to you as a man?
Well, this is where I learned how to be a man. No, I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies ever because I love the arc that Michael Corleone had. It's one of the best depictions of a character's falling into evil I've ever seen. Every time I watch this movie, I think about everything that Anakin Skywalker's fall and the Star Wars prequels wasn't like everything that George Lucas would have wanted it to be, and how poorly done it was. Because with Michael Corleone's descent into evil, every step makes sense. Like he gets trapped in this cycle of revenge and becoming more and more brutal in his efforts to try to end his threats or perceived threats to his family, and he loses his soul because of it. It's a tragic tale, and it reminds me of arcs you see in classic literature. Like it reminds me of like Count of Monte Cristo, because it's kind of like what I was saying earlier with that revenge fantasy, because that's the satisfying part at the end where he gets revenge on those who are plotting against his family. But it's just such a fascinating character, and it's just so well done. Like, just love this movie so much.
Wow. In the chat, Mark says it's a tragedy. Godfather's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And Rib Rascal says, I read the book as well. The movie was even better.
Oh, really? The movie? Yeah. One of these days, I would like to read a book.
What do you think about, because I've heard people, again, guy question, I've heard guys ask this, what was the best of the Godfather films? Which one?
I think it's the first one. I know some people think second one, but me, just again, that his descent from going from this kind of innocent college guy who's a war hero who wanted nothing to do with his father's business, and he ends up getting drawn into it in an effort to protect his father and to get revenge on his father. Again, that arc is just it's fantastic. And the second one, I love the second one too. I didn't quite find it as satisfying because it's more of a juxtaposition between showing the rise of Vito Corleone, his father, and juxtaposing that with Michael Corleone's even further fall into evil. You know, especially what he does with his brother. And but yeah, no. Does anyone
What?
ever say the third one is the best one? I'm just thinking,
I
like,
did
is
hear
there a
that.
single person ever on the face of the earth that said Godfather 3
I
is
saw a
better than
woman
part
say
one?
that.
Who?
It was I was watching Nerdrotic, Gary from Nerdrotic, and I forget who else. They were on Piers Morgan, and he was asking them about. I just had it on in the background, and he was asking about the favorite Godfather, and the one of the women said Godfather 3, and all the men were like, "Oh, stop it!" Like, like,
Just trying to be contrarian.
yeah, yeah.
Because as I said, I recently rewatched Godfather 3, and it's not, to be fair, it's not as bad as I remember, but it's still not to the quality of second one. His he doesn't have as great of an arc. Honestly, I think it probably shouldn't have been made in the first place. But if it were to be, made, or well, let me rephrase that. If they should have been remade, or well, I keep saying remade, it should have been made shortly after the second one, if they were to do a third one. Because the only reason why the third one got made is because the studio wanted Francis Ford Coppola to make a third movie. He didn't want to do it, but he needed money because he had invested money in a number of films that he did that weren't financial successes. And
Was he
he did.
contractually obligated to do it?
I
Do
don't
you
think he's
know?
contractually obligated, but he needed the money. And so I believe Mario Puzo, the guy who wrote the author and also wrote the screenplays for first and second ones, I believe he returned for the third one and helped write that. But it's just, I think it was just too late, for that story to be told. And of course the infamous Sofia Coppola thing, which I feel really bad for her because she seems like a very nice person. You listen to her interview; she's very soft spoken, seems like a nice person, but she got a lot of hate for her not so great acting in that movie, and people made fun of her looks too. Which I think she got better looking as she got older. To be fair, but her character, who's Mike Corleone's daughter in the third one, was originally supposed to be played by Winona Ryder, but Winona Ryder had to step down from the role because of some health issues and some other projects she had going on. And so there was a last minute scramble to find someone to play the daughter. And Francis Ford Coppola really liked his daughter and thought she had a kind of innocence and naivety to her that he thought fit the role. And there are a lot of people who were against that, including his own sister, who plays Michael Corleone's sister in the film. She was against it. A lot of people were like, Francis, what are you doing? But he insisted on doing it. Sofia Coppola said that she did it as a favor to her father. She was never really interested in pursuing acting as a career. And so it was just kind of a thing for her, a little thing. And it just wasn't great. And then on top of that, Robert Duvall decided not to do the movie because they wouldn't pay him. I think he wanted as much money as Pacino was making. So they were going to have him reprise his role as Tom Hagen, the family lawyer. But since they couldn't agree on terms, they ended up killing off his character and replacing him with some George Hamilton. I was like, what? It's just a lot of weird things about that movie. It's just wasn't great, but yeah, it's kind of sad for such two great films to have a third installment that wasn't anywhere close. Which, to be fair, most trilogies aren't. I think Lord of the Rings is probably the only trilogy where you could say that each movie's probably close. I don't think the second one is as good as the first and second one, but
Mhm.
still, I think in terms of quality, I think that's pretty much the only trilogy I can think of, which that where all three movies were pretty close in high quality.
Now I'm racking my brain trying to think of all the trilogies I know.
Maybe you could say
But
Christopher Nolan's Batman films, but Dark Knight Rises was disappointing. It's hard
Mhm.
to follow up with The Dark Knight. And the same thing with Godfather. Like, it's hard. I mean, it was hard enough to follow up with the first Godfather, but they managed to do a great sequel with the second one. But then you're asking for lightning to strike 3 times, and that just wasn't going to happen with the
Yeah.
third one.
Do you think this is a franchise that they're going to ruin at some point
Of course.
by doing a
I'm surprised they
prequel
haven't
or
already.
yeah.
There's probably some issue with the rights, maybe. But I'm surprised they haven't. Like, I always joked in my head about recasting. Like, when I did the woke pitches some months ago, one of the ideas I thought about was doing a Godfather wine with like Will Smith and Kevin Hart in it, like all black Godfather.
Oh, but it'd be women. It would be like a girl boss Godfather.
Mm.
It would be something
Amy
terrible,
Schumer as
Yes, Amy Schumer as the
Bella
Godfather,
Corleone.
and it would be called The Godmother, and they
Yeah, that's
uh,
gonna happen.
yeah,
There's a number of movies I'm surprised they haven't remade already. That, Back to the Future, Never Ending Story, which I think they're right issues, which they might already be. That might be in production if I read correctly recently. But yeah, those movies I'm just surprised Hollywood hasn't brought back and ruined already.
wow. Let me give you an update, Mystery Chris, on the polling. So
Hmm.
first of all, our first question, I ended that poll, and it was, are gangster films more of a guy thing, or equally guy and girl thing? And 77% of people said, yeah, they're more of a guy thing. 23% said no, people like them equally. Um, and currently, we have a new poll running in the chat. Best Godfather film. 75% of people say Godfather 1. 19% of people say Godfather 2. And 6% say Godfather 3.
I
There
would
you
like to
go.
hear the arguments of people. I generally am fascinated to
Yeah.
understand people who think that's the best of the trilogy. And I'm trying to be mean or anything, but I generally want to understand
Yeah. Out yourselves in the chat.
that. Who am I,
Kidding.
sis, does not belong.
We're kidding. We're kidding.
We're kidding. I love you guys.
No, he really does want to know. I know him
Yeah,
well
but
enough.
I
Yeah.
want to know.
He's curious. Okay, what is this?
Oh, so this is what I was mentioning earlier about uh, how there was concern about the way Italians were played or portrayed in
Mhm.
these gangster movies. And so when The Godfather, the first one, first aired on national broadcast television, Francis Ford Coppola recorded an intro where he talked about how the violence in there may not be suitable for younger audiences, but he also talks about how this wasn't meant to portray Italians in negative light. And so I just wanted to play a little bit of this to again show you that there were trigger warnings on The Godfather back in the 70s.
Trigger warnings. Here we go. Is it queued up at the right place? 109?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, it's mute.
Any stereotypes in the film so that the mannerisms and home life and the feeling of the people are as authentic as I could remember from my own upbringing in an Italian American home, even though my family, as are the majority of Italian Americans, in quite a different business. I hope no one will let this story or these characters in any way reflect on the whole of the Italian people. I think that would be unfair.
And there's
wow.
another one. You pull up his sister, Talia Shire, who is Adrian in the Rocky movies, and also Michael Corleone's sister. She recorded an intro as well, essentially saying the same thing. But again, I thought it was interesting that they felt the need to record another one stating
They
the same
really,
thing.
because there was at the time, and this is in some of the articles I read, there were organizations at the time saying, don't do this. These are stereotypes. And so I guess they felt the need to come out ahead of time and say, hey, trigger warning. We're not trying to push stereotypes.
Oh, wait. No, that's good.
Scenes were put together again in a different order, and some scenes cut out to shorten the original films have been added. In a sense, the two Godfather films as seen in theaters are incomplete. This version, especially designed to be seen on television over 4 consecutive nights, is the complete story. It is fiction suggested by fact, the creation of author Mario Puzo. It details the frightening actions of a small criminal group, and it would be grossly unfair to let these characters and their story represent the history or the deeds of Italians and Italian Americans. This is not the story of an entire people whose contributions are positive and tremendously valuable.
Look at that. And at the bottom it says parental discretion is advised. We repeat, this is not all Italians. This is just the Italian stories that you guys demand.
Capiche?
Capiche?
By us all. And now, The Godfather.
It's also interesting when she said that that broadcast, I guess they were broadcasting Godfather 1 and 2, but it was being broadcast over 4 nights because each movie is like 3 hours long. And of course, when you have commercials, it's going to be super long. So they spread the broadcast over 4 different nights, which is just crazy to think about today. Which I guess maybe not so crazy if people are watching streaming stuff, they're binging it, but
Yeah.
for broadcasts, yeah, I think it's still surprising.
Yeah. Kevin in chat says, these are just the interesting Italians. Okay. Here, I've got a couple things to put up for you to put on the screen to show you.
What is this gonna be?
Let's see.
Type
This
in
is
music
this was
Gangster.
this was from an Italian site, and I just thought this one was interesting. And it's I don't think English is this guy's first language, the guy that wrote this, FYI. So it's a little bit clunky, but pop culture and the Italian mafia, the glamorization of the Italian mafia over the past century. And so his whole point seems to be that Italian filmmakers were making Italian mafia films for decades, but it was really Hollywood and American Italian film mobster films that changed everything. And so he starts off by saying, you know, the mob, he keeps coming back to this point, the Italian mafia is awful. They've killed thousands of people, he says, in Italy. You know, in Italy, people hate the mafia. And so when they first started doing films about the Italian mafia in Italy, like so Italian filmmakers, he says they wanted the audience to depict the character as shady, not approachable. Italian filmmakers didn't want to promote mafia culture because of the large effects the Italian mafia has had on Italy and the large amounts of Italian people it is affected. Some examples of these shady mafia characters are, and then he gives a couple of different Italian films. He says both movies did very well in Italy, but did not make the international movie scene like they'd hoped for. And then it says, you know, when then Hollywood entered the picture, Hollywood filmmakers believed they could make mafia movies better than anyone else in the world. And they proved themselves, and they did. Hollywood filmmakers took a different spin on these mafia characters. And instead of making them undesirable and shady, they made them handsome and likable. Even though these characters were supposed to be bad guys, it was hard not to like them because of their witty personalities. And it talks about The Godfather and how successful it was, and Scorsese's Goodfellas. And so he said, the Italian filmmakers learned from this. And so by the early 2000s, the Italian filmmakers realized they needed to change their ways or they would suffer. Instead of what they usually did was cast an undesirable character, they started casting handsome ones in these mafia roles. And so he's sort of talking about how the American, like Hollywood's influence on this genre of Italian mobster films, how it impacted cinema in Italy and how they depicted the mafia. But he says, look at this, because of Hollywood's portrayal of the Italian mafia, many people believe the mafia is a positive force. Most people believe in this positivity because of the small repercussions the Italian mafia has had on their lives. But people that live in Italy, though, are affected every day because of the mafia. Even in the 21st century, the mafia is still very much present throughout Italy. Thousands of people have been affected by the Italian mafia. The mafia in Italy has taken thousands of lives and continues to do so. And so he goes on and on about, like, this guy really hates the Italian mafia. But I just thought that part was interesting, how he's like, oh, American films, you know, in this genre, they changed how mobsters were portrayed in Italy as well.
Well, a lot of mobsters started dressing differently after these movies came out, and they started using language that was in some of these movies, like the term Godfather. Mario Puzo made up that term, but then that became commonplace language among a lot of mobsters. And a lot of these gangster movies were actually kind of recruiting tools were some mob organizations where a lot of people saw them like, hey, I want to be in that life. I'm gonna actually become a mobster. Another interesting thing too about The Godfather was how they actually consulted a little bit with actual mobsters for the movie. And one of the group that I forget the group, I didn't write it down. There was a activist group. It's no longer together, but it was created to fight stereotypes of Italian Americans in films. But it later turned out that it was created, in fact, by one of the 5 families in New York, the Colombo family. And they were actually trying to get removal of terms about the mafia. Like they actually were successful in getting the term Costa Nostra removed from the script of Godfather, as well as the term mafia.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's surprising. But yeah.
I've got some articles pulled up on some of this stuff we can get to later, but let's move on to another clip. We're going to move on to Godfather. Oh, actually, let's do this, the Pepsi commercial.
Oh yeah. This is just the modern. I just found it because I put this in here to show the effect of just how much The Godfather and gangster movies in general had on the general pop culture. Like being in this pop culture ecosystem that existed at one point in time, which was much smaller than what it is now before everything got fragmented. Everybody was talking about, there's constant references to so many of these gangster films and movies and TV. Earlier, we were talking off camera about how there were references in cartoons to gangster films. Like when I was a kid watching Animaniacs, you had Goodfellas. I had no idea what Goodfellas was. But when I got older, I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, these references to gangsters and
like the horse head in the bed.
Yeah, the one-liners,
Yeah.
make him offer he can't refuse. Like that kind of stuff just became so commonplace. And it's just, I don't know, I kind of miss those times, where it seemed like the entire culture knew about something and loved something and was sharing pop culture.
We had the same cultural references, and now
it was a bond. It kind of bonded people together as a time when real bonds, real cultural value bonds were eroding. There still was strong bonds over fiction.
Over fiction. Yeah, but now there's so many choices in entertainment and so many platforms, and that we don't have as many of these, even pop culture bonds. We don't have as many pop culture bonds as we used to have,
Yeah.
Folks, a large pepperoni pizza.
And a Pepsi, please.
A Pepsi. Sure thing, Curly. Here you go, Cupcake.
Thank you.
Hey, come here. I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm going to tell you. We both know I ordered a Pepsi Cola. And now you've insulted me and my entire family by offering me this. Whatever this. For being a civilized person, I'd like to give you a chance to make amends. Capiche? Yeah. Here you go.
Thank you.
That was great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look, if all commercials were that good, I wouldn't mind watching them.
Yeah, there's no creativity in commercials anymore.
No.
By the way, that reminds me of probably one of my favorite anecdotes about Marlon Brando is one that Ed Begley Jr. tells, because they used to be really good friends. And so Ed Begley Jr. said that one day he gets a call from Marlon Brando, and Marlon's like, Ed, you gotta come over. You gotta come over now. He's like, what's wrong, Marlon? Marlon, tell me what's wrong. He's no time. You gotta come over. And so Ed Begley Jr. runs out of his house, gets in his car, drives over to Marlon Brando's house, runs up, rings the doorbell. Marlon answers. He goes, Ed, you gotta come to the backyard. He's like, Marlon, what's wrong? Tell me. He's like, you gotta come now. And so he takes him to his swimming pool and he points. He goes, look, there's a bunch of electric eels in Marlon Brando's swimming pool. And Marlon says, how about some electric eels? What do you think? And I was like, what?
What? I like the story. You can do accents and imitations better than me. You should always do them. Okay. Godfather 2.
Godfather 2, 1974. And this was what's this? De Niro's big break. Wait, I think probably because I think Mean Streets came out the year before. And then I think it was this movie. And then Taxi Driver, I think was 76. But yeah, so Robert De Niro plays Marlon Brando's character, the young version of Vito Corleone. And yeah, going to play it. Or maybe you should mute it. I don't know. Because there's a trailer, I thought.
I'll mute it after a few seconds. So
yeah, okay.
The Godfather Part 2, winner of 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year.
I love this kind of voiceover. This very classic. Why do we have movie trailers like this anymore?
Yeah, what year did those voiceover trailers stop? Because it just seemed like it happened overnight. I can't remember what year it was. Because all of a sudden, like no trailers had any voiceovers.
Yeah.
You can fast forward where they actually show some stuff.
Well, look at all the awards.
Yeah.
I mean,
Godfather 1 and 2 won Best Picture.
They're basically just bragging on themselves right now, but it's good. Okay, here we go.
That's young Vito Corleone. Picks his life as an Italian immigrant. And all these scenes are shown in this kind of sepia tone to invoke this kind of nostalgia for the past, showing how he was able to have a family and how he got involved with organized crime. And then juxtaposed with Michael Corleone, which I don't really care all that much, to be honest, with these scenes with the younger Vito Corleone. I was more interested in Michael's story and the continued fall, in particular what happens with him and his brother. Because initially there was a bit of controversy because a lot of people, today will say Godfather 2 is, the best Godfather, or a lot of people today say it's one of the best gangster films ever, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But there was some controversy earlier on when this film came out. It was a little bit more mixed than it is now, because there were a lot of people who didn't quite like the juxtaposition of the past with the present. Didn't quite work for a lot of people. But, things have changed, and people recognize it to be one of the greatest films ever now.
By the way, ADL 1992, thank you. He says he thinks it was around 2003 that the voiceovers and trailers stopped.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So did you know that Robert De Niro auditioned for the first Godfather for the part of Sonny and he didn't get it?
I think I heard that. Yeah.
Do you want to watch his failed audition tape?
I want to watch anything that Robert De Niro fails at.
Okay.
He's a brilliant actor, I must say, but still I enjoy.
Oh, right, because he's been in the news lately, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, gosh. Yeah. At the Trump trial, he's out there. There were Italian Americans out there yelling at him and calling him things I had never heard. Mook was one of them. I don't know. I was like, Mike Harlow, translate this for me. I need an Italian to tell me what this means. They were not happy with him. Okay. So this came out a few years ago. His failed audition. So he auditioned to play the part of Sonny and did not get it.
You're gonna take both of them out on me. You're gonna take them, and you know what they're gonna do to you. And you know what you do when you knock somebody off? You take a gun, you shoot him right up against his fucking head. That's what you do. You get his brains all over your nice new Ivy League suit, Michael. That's what happens. I know you can do it. All right, you prove it to me. You can do it.
Sorry for the language, by the way.
Good, go ahead. Prove it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it would have been like with De Niro as Sonny. I mean, I'm sure he would have done a fine job, but it's I don't know. I like James Caan.
I like the way it worked out better. Yeah. Yeah, James Caan did it better. Well, and we're so used to that now, it's like you can't even imagine it with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard to think about an alternative when you're so used to something for years or decades.
Okay, so I'm having trouble pulling up this
which one?
The Godfather 3.
It's not coming up. It's just
wait, here it is.
Oh.
Okay. I thought
Godfather
for a second.
3 Came
Go
out in
ahead.
1990. Which 1990 was a busy year for gangster films. You had Godfather 3, you had Goodfellas, and Miller's Crossing. And then if you want to count Dick Tracy, if you want to go, I'll count Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Pacino is in that, so that counts.
Two epics.
It's not personal. It's strictly business.
Two classics.
Are they showing footage from the first two films
Yeah.
to sell the third film?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Remember how much you like these two movies?
Mm-hmm. It just wasn't that satisfying seeing older Michael Corleone, who was very guilt-ridden with the things he did. And I was like, it's just not satisfying. It makes sense, but... And the weird thing is, like, even with the mixed critical reception to Godfather 3, there were plans to make a Godfather 4, loose plans that Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo were planning that was going to concentrate on Sonny's illegitimate kid, Vincent Corleone. But I think Mario Puzo died in the early 90s, and so once he died, plans went out the window.
And they decided not to. I'm shocked they haven't done anything with it yet. Like the woke haven't messed it up. So this is a commercial from 1990.
In peace, I betrayed my wife. In war, I betrayed myself. With trust, I killed men. With vengeance, and I ordered men to be killed.
Right or wrong, one man controls this empire.
It was not what I wanted!
On Christmas Day, the Godfather pulls you back into his power. The Godfather, Part 3, rated R.
Is it
That's what oh, sorry. I was going to say, that's what I always say to myself. I'm joking, like I'm at a restaurant or a store, and I accidentally buy the wrong thing, or someone gives me an order that's messed up. I always say to myself, that's not what I wanted! Sorry, go ahead.
It's very quotable. These are all very quotable movies. Oh, I was just going to say, do you think part of, while watching that commercial, it just kind of struck me that, to go back to our conversation at the beginning about why gangster films tend to be more of a guy thing, maybe, or, true crime, the one subgenre of true crime that more men watch and read than women is gangster stuff, gangster or war related stuff. Do you think part of that has to do with watching the hierarchy, like with one leader, whether it's something in history with a leader and people who are working under? Is it all about the social stuff, the social status, the politics, and the background, the backstabbing and the climbing and the hierarchy? That's part of it, right?
I think it's the kind of Machiavellian aspects of it, seeing these characters that plan out these or do these long cons to get revenge on their enemies. It's like a deadly game of chess. And it's very fascinating, satisfying to see the protagonist, the person you're rooting for, execute their plan to get revenge on their enemies. And so that's what I always love about the Godfathers. I know not all gangster films are like that. Some gangster films show gangsters as being a lot more psychopathic and less Machiavellian, and how they're very impulsive, especially with Goodfellas, with Joe Pesci's character.
We're about to, speaking of Goodfellas, we're about to put this one up. Let's see.
Goodfellas, and that was Goodfellas. A lot of people say Goodfellas is the best gangster film of all time. I don't quite agree. I love Goodfellas. I recently watched it. I didn't quite find it as satisfying as the first time I watched it, because it doesn't have as dramatic of an arc. Like, it's impossible for me not to compare every gangster film or television show to The Godfather. I just can't help it. But I still love it. Still, great movie.
Can we just pause it right here on this famous scene that has
speaking of quotable, yes.
Quotable. This is in so many memes. It's one of my favorite memes where he's laughing hysterically, Ray Liotta.
And this the scene where he's laughing after Joe Pesci makes a joke, and he says the infamous he says he's funny, and Joe Pesci is like,
funny like a clown.
What do you mean? How am I funny? Funny like a clown? Like, apparently that actually happened to Joe Pesci when he was younger, and he was working in some bar that had some mobsters in it, and he had said that to a mobster, and the mobster got pissed at him. And so this was improv to a certain degree. They rewrote the scene a little bit, but Joe Pesci kind of came up with that on the spot.
Wow.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
You might have to mute this too. But I have a commercial too, if you want to show the commercial.
I'll show the commercial, and that way,
But this was based on a book, which is based on a true story of Henry Hill. It's a mobster turned informant. So this kind of chronicles his life, how he got into the mob, his upbringing, which I thought was interesting. They showed that he grew up in an abusive household, so it makes sense. Someone who raised around violence would be then attracted to a lifestyle where he can artificially propel himself up the social economic ladder through violence and illicit means. Also details his wife, showing a damaged woman, which a lot of these movies, especially in these Scorsese movies, show damaged women who are madly in love with mobsters.
With these bad guy characters, yeah.
But yeah, this was we put Ray Liotta on the map. Rest in peace, Ray Liotta. Yeah, sad. He and Paul Savino. Rest in peace, Paul Savino, who was great in this film as well. And Lorraine Bracco, I believe she played the Tony Soprano psychiatrist, which I must confess I need to get through the rest of the Sopranos. I started watching it. I've waited so long to get into it, but
wow,
I know.
Somebody's gonna take your guy card.
What? Someone already took my black card. Don't take my guy card. But yeah, eventually I will watch the entire series. But yeah, this movie is great.
I've seen this one more recently than the Godfather ones. It's been a while since I've seen this. This is a really great movie.
And it's weird how like Joe Pesci is a short man, but he still comes off as kind of scary. Like I think he comes off more scary in like interviews. I was watching an interview you did with David Letterman in like 1990, 91. And he comes across as like a nice guy. He's very soft spoken, but he's still kind of scary in a weird way, which is weird to think about. It's like Joe Pesci, tiny guy, but see him go ballistic twice in two different movies where he essentially plays the same character in Casino, which we'll talk about in a second.
You know, he does music.
Yeah, he's a singer.
He's really good, actually. Thank you to someone in the chat who mentioned this, reminded me of this because we did not have it pulled up. And I'm trying to see. I'm sorry, it scrolled by already. I forget who said it, but AMC put a trigger warning on Goodfellas.
Really?
Did you know this?
The recent trigger one, not like a Godfather type.
Yeah. Goodfellas gets trigger warning by AMC. The 1990 biographical crime drama Goodfellas now comes with a trigger warning courtesy of AMC Networks due to its portrayal of language and or cultural stereotypes that may be offensive to some viewers. So that whiny, woke Italian-American guy is probably very happy. They're giving him his trigger warning. The warning aims to alert viewers about content that does not align with modern standards of inclusion and tolerance. Okay, so all the selling of drugs, the felonies, the murder, the sexual violence, all that's cool. But the cultural stereotypes, it does not align with our modern moral standards, guys. I'm just pointing this out because it's funny to me that all these woke people like to pretend like they've taken religion out of schools and they've taken Christian morality out of the public square, and they like to act like there's no morality function. There's no religion functioning there anymore, like in public schools or in the public square and popular media. And they're absolutely wrong. We're swimming in it. We're swimming in their morality. We're swimming in their religion. And so what happens now? This is like the Hays Code, except it's woke. So instead of saying we're going to talk about moral issues, like we're going to put a trigger warning about murder and violence and drugs and felony and sex and sexual violence and all that. No. All that's cool in a film. Like we're all adults and enlightened individuals, right? We can all handle that. You don't need a warning for that. Nothing wrong with that. But you know, if you do something, if there's any portrayal that might be perceived offensive to a marginalized group, oh, now you got to put a moral warning on it. Get that moral label on there.
I'm surprised they even care about white people. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, does not align with modern standards of inclusion and tolerance. That's the religion right there. Inclusion and tolerance.
Because I don't think I've ever seen any modern movie or show that had a trigger warning because of the way it portray white people in it or an ethnic group of whites in it.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Well,
all right.
At the beginning, there's this incentive now because this is the dominant religion and culture. And you have this religion gives you more power, more of a voice, more sway, the more so-called marginalized identities you can check off. So there's an incentive for straight white guys to come up with different marginalized identities. Oh, now I'm an aerosexual, right? Like, or what's the one that's like, I'm only sexually attracted to people that I'm emotionally attracted to? That's not, but some guys are claiming it now. I'm a sexual minority. I'm part of the LGBTQ, you know, and this too, like really stretching, right? Like I'm an Italian American and now that I'm declaring I'm part of this marginalized identity, I got to find something to be offended about. Oh, let's pick a very famous Italian American movie.
When will it stop? Never.
Will it stop? Thank you guys for the super chats, by the way. Take a quick second and read some of these. Justin Akinsola for $9.99. Thank you, Justin. He says, did y'all see the Godfather miniseries? The guy that played young Al Pacino looks exactly like him. Did you see that?
No, I haven't. I'll look that up. Yeah, I don't think I even heard of that.
If you find a picture of him, drop it in the private chat while I read this next one.
Let's see.
LPJ for $10. Thank you, LPJ says, I might be late. What was your favorite Godfather movie to the two Utes? What's that mean? To the two Utes?
Of us.
Oh, to the two of us?
Utes.
I don't. In the South, we say y'all. Or all y'all. That's one word. All y'all. Thank you, LPJ. Well, Mystery Chris did answer this. He said his favorite
Black Godfather
is the Black Godfather. He says the first one. We also did a poll, and the majority of the audience, 77% of the audience, no, 75% said it was the first one also. And it's been so long since I've seen them. I'd have to vote for probably the first one because that's the one I remember the most of. My vote doesn't really count because it's been too long since I've seen it.
Trying to look up the miniseries. I think is it The Offer? That is which is this? Okay, the guy played Cyclops in the new X-Men stuff's in it. Is he playing Corleone? Or Pacino? No, it can't be. No, this guy. I think this is the guy. I think. Hold on. I'm put this in chat. It's a New York Post article. Hold on.
ADL is such a quick little researcher. Thank you, dude. He's like, it's demisexual. That's the term I was looking for. That's that new sexuality.
Attracted to Demi Moore? Yes.
Attracted to Demi Moore. No, that's where they say, my sexuality is that I'm only sexually attracted to people I'm emotionally attracted to. Okay, well, that's not a sexuality. Stop it. Yes, it is. I'm marginalized.
I just put the article in the private chat. And so, yeah, this guy actually does look like a young Pacino. He's got a same nose.
Oh, yeah, I can see it. Please go away, Amazon Prime. Okay. His name is Anthony Ippolito. Yeah, that's good casting. I like it when they do that. I like it when they try and find someone who looks a lot like the other actor.
So you have a talented casting director, yep.
Yeah. Thank you guys for that. Let's show. Should I show the commercial for Goodfellas?
Yeah, show a commercial. Let me see if I can find the other link that I meant to put in there too.
Because this I probably don't have to mute, right? We can actually.
No, you don't have to mute this.
Okay, good.
They were Goodfellas who lived for the action. Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci. Now, from highly acclaimed director Martin Scorsese comes the action saga of 3 decades of life in the mafia.
What am I supposed to do, shoot him? That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Goodfellas, rated R, now playing at a theater near you.
Yeah, I just love him saying rated R. It makes me want to see the movie more. Rated R, if you're cool.
The ratings did have that effect, right? We
Yeah.
talked about that before, how when they started putting ratings on things, it made you want to see it.
I know we're not getting a Scarface quite yet, but Scarface originally had an X rating because of the amount of violence in it. And so there was back and forth between Brian De Palma, the director, and I think he ended up getting most of it in by tricking the censors. But yeah.
Okay, this is a news piece.
Yeah, I just want to show a little bit of the real Henry Hill, because he doesn't seem anything like Ray Liotta, to be fair. I mean, maybe in this he does a little bit, but like I listened to an interview he did with Howard Stern, and he was drunk, to be fair, but like he was just laughing his ass off. He's like, oh, he had a high pitched voice. It's like, really, this is supposed to be the same guy?
This is supposed to be Ray Liotta.
Yeah, Henry Hill plays the same character.
A fearful existence created by their father. Here's a look at the life they were running from. Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta in Goodfellas.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
The real Henry Hill wasn't born into the mob. Half Italian and half Irish, he had to earn his way in. At a young age, he became obsessed with the idea of wise guys and gangsters.
In my neighborhood, where I came from in Brooklyn, these are the guys with the silk suits and the diamond rings and the beautiful woman.
And everybody else you knew, like your father, was just getting up every morning and going to work.
Yeah, with a lunch pail, and the whole block was like Normalville.
Henry Hill did everything he.
I don't know. He seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean, in this interview, but I've seen other ones where he's more looser. It's like it doesn't come across the same at all.
Oh, really?
And then in that interview, it showed how his kids were still afraid to be on camera, and so they had to put him all these prosthetics, and they're so angry at their dad because of what he did, and that they had to distance themselves from him and hide their identities. Oh, yeah. Just put this in because you got to put in Goodfellas pizza.
So we got another commercial. This just goes to your point of how deeply culture and pop culture was affected by these films, and everyone, even if you didn't watch them, or even today, like if I haven't seen the Godfather films in forever, but we all have the same cultural references or pop cultural references, like the orange in the mouth, the voices, the famous lines. So this is another advertisement. Oh no.
The audio playing? I'm not hearing anything. Are you hearing? Is that me? Can you hear? Hello? Hey, Keri, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear anything. I don't know. Get the chat here?
Oh, no audio, everybody was saying. Oh, no, I could hear it. Sorry.
That's weird.
Well, they were going bada bing, bada boom. We got a Goodfellas pizza here. I'll tell you. What? We got a pizza. That's what we're doing.
Just pass them into butter. All the
It's
cliches
delicious
rolled into one
and-
commercial.
Yeah, that was super like it's a Mario moment. Is something wrong? Let me see if I can try that again. But it's funny to me that this is like now that they're putting trigger warnings on the Goodfellas movie and stuff, oh, this is offensive to Italian Americans. It doesn't fit with our modern sensibilities, right? Like now that they're doing that, it's even more apparent, like you said at the beginning, that they don't do this for Southern Americans, for Southern white Americans. Oh, they're completely happy with portraying us like, dumb, inbred crackers. Like they're totally fine with that stereotype. I doubt we'll ever see that where it's sort of these are in it. Just be aware these are stereotypes of Southerners or stereotypes of Trump voters for that matter. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's fair game.
Okay, see if you can hear it this time.
I love you more.
No, I love you
No,
more.
I love you more.
Yeah, how much more?
Love? Who needs it? We got Goodfellas.
Can you hear
Yeah,
it?
can you hear?
Oh, good. Okay, I don't know what happened before.
Style pizza, but when you gonna find yourself a nice girl?
Sure, Sal. Get married. You got the tomatoes. You got the cheese. Pizza like this, I'd marry you myself.
You Mama Luke.
Hey, who's white my pepperoni?
Bada bing.
Bada bing.
Okay, so I could understand why people would be upset at this commercial. Like this one makes more sense than the movies. Like it's so over the top and cartoonish.
It's so over the top, but it's funny and like get over it, guys. It's just, I mean, I was speaking of Southerners, and we see stereotypes all the time, and also Irish stereotypes. My ancestors Irish and English, and just grow a thicker skin. And white people stereotypes, we only eat tuna fish casserole and like hidey ho neighbor. And I mean, there's all, it's just bada bing, bada boom is fun. It's funny.
American style pizza from stores with ice compartments.
And don't forget, I believe Godfather's Pizza, wasn't that the one that Herman Cain was CEO of for a while?
Oh, really?
I think so.
I didn't
I'm
know
gonna fact
that.
check myself. I'm gonna look this up just to be. Herman Cain.
Therese, hey Therese, she says nobody says bada bing. Oh, here. Thank you for the super chat. Tim Gibson for $20. Thanks for the generous super chat. He says,
Yes.
Scarface, even though it's dated, was ever bit as great at the theater. That's one I haven't seen in a long time either. If they brought that back, I used to live in a town that had one of those sort of independent theaters that would screen old films. I need to find another place like that near me now because I like going to the theater to see old movies. Thank you, Tim. We're also, even though Scarface is not Italian American, we are going to cover it. We do have a couple clips pulled up.
But yes, Herman Cain was CEO of Godfather's Pizza.
He was?
So he is the Black Godfather.
He's the Black Godfather. I wonder if he did any commercials.
I hope they were just as funny as his campaign commercials. And he just smiles creepily at the camera.
Okay, next up on the list is Casino. And why don't I just go straight to the commercial? That way I don't have to mute it.
Yeah. Casino, it's a good movie, but it always makes you sad because I think everyone, including my own, thought when you first talk about Casino, is not as good as Goodfellas because this is one of the Martin Scorsese's films. It's the gangster film he did right after Goodfellas in 1995. And it's similar to Goodfellas. It's not as good or interesting. I still love the film, but there are a lot of similarities with the character, especially with Joe Pesci's character, another character who's very impulsive and can fly off the handle at any moment with these violent outbursts. And so I did enjoy that it was a movie that kind of explored the mob's involvement with gambling in Las Vegas. And I thought that was something that we didn't get to see a whole lot in other movies. Saw a little bit in Godfather too, but this whole movie deals with that. And so it's an entertaining movie, but again, not as good as Goodfellas, sadly.
It's a little depressing. From what I remember.
Most of them are, actually. It's like war movies. So.
Yeah.
You act like that.
No one's ever been so nice to me.
I want to settle down. I want a family.
You got the wrong girl. He makes me stick around to see my own friends.
Who are you with? Keep a good eye on him. He's a loose cannon. You must really trust your wife. Yeah, sure I do. Why?
Robert De Niro, Sharon Stone, Joe Pesci in a Martin Scorsese picture, Casino.
Can I trust you? Can I trust you?
Starts Wednesday, November 20th.
And this was also based on a book, which was based on a real life person. They changed the name, though. The real guy was Frank Rosenthal, but they changed it to Ace Rothstein in this film that Robert De Niro's character plays. And they changed the other names as well. But from what I've read, it seems like a lot of things that happened in this movie actually did happen in real life to these characters.
Wow. It would now be a good time to go to some of the stuff probably about how the real mafia reacted to some of this, and some of these were based on true stories. I've got an article I wanted to show
pull that
you.
up.
Okay, cool. Let's see.
The real mafia is fascinating too. I enjoy watching documentaries and reading up on them, especially how they still exist. I mean, obviously not as powerful as they once were, but it's still fascinating. I think one of the things for me that's fascinating about mafia movies and mafia in general in real life was how this dark culture could exist beneath the surface of a supposedly civil society. Like you have this whole underworld built on illicit trade and violence and prostitution, and how at one point in time they owned a lot more of the government than they do now. Although you could say the government is a mob family.
I was about to say the biggest mob is the government.
FBI.
That's the biggest mob. Okay, this is an article from Geeks. How the Godfather changed organized crime. The mafia tried to stop the Godfather, but at the end of the day, the mob owes a lot to the media portrayals. Before the filming of The Godfather, mob boss Joseph Colombo met with Al Ruddy of Paramount to review the script on behalf of the Italian American Civil Rights League and removed all references to the word mafia. This is what you were talking about before. But once the movie was released, it seemed that the mob's concerns had been superfluous. While the movie did indeed have an impact on the mafia, it did far more good for them than harm. Mafiosos themselves appreciated the film greatly, and many didn't believe Puzo's claims that he wrote the book purely from research, not real-life experience. Quote, somebody had to be helping him. He had the whole atmosphere, the way we talked, that wedding scene. I mean, that was so real. I mean, my book isn't a pimple on his book, and I'm in my book, said Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano. But besides being recognizable, how else did The Godfather impact the mafia directly? Well, number one, it helped with recruiting. The Godfather was the best recruiting tool the mob ever had. As the first memorable tale told through the eyes of the mobsters instead of the police, the film made joining the mob not only palatable, but downright attractive to young Italian Americans and gave them a strong sense of pride about their heritage. A reformed mafioso named Dominic Montagleo settled down to watch the movie in the spring of 1972 and was instantly enraptured. A shiver ran down his spine as Michael Corleone warned Fredo, you're my elder brother and I love you, but don't ever take sides with anyone against the family ever again. The loyalty, the tradition, and the nobility of the mob were all captured on the big screen. Don Corleone was surprisingly honorable, ruthless with his enemies, but devoted to his family. So this guy, Dominic, soon packed up his things. Remember, he was a reformed mafioso. But after watching The Godfather, he packed up his things and returned to his Uncle Nino's embrace and back to the life of organized crime. Isn't that?
And I wanted to add, I think it's one of the interesting things about mafia movies too, and mafia in general, particularly in movies, is we as viewers are watching these characters do horrific, violent things to other mobsters, but then they go home and have dinner with their family. Like Tony Soprano could kill someone and then go have dinner with his family and ask his kids how the day at school was. And that contradiction is just so fascinating for a lot of us, because like how can this complete sociopath then go home and have what would appear to be real, genuine relationships with his family members? It's bizarre, and I think that's just one of the things that interests a lot of people into mafia movies and TV shows.
Yeah, it's similar. It is similar to the way women watch a lot of true crime about sociopaths and serial killers, because they are interested. I think we are interested in how does a person do that? How does a person, like, how do you explain evil, and how especially the people who lead double lives of evil, you know? So I think it's kind of similar to that, and watching them go from this one transgressive role in society and then go back to some kind of normalcy, like you said in this.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put this back up for a second because one other way in this article of how the mobster films helped the mafia, and it was in public presentation. So it says The Godfather also had an impact on how mobsters presented themselves outwardly. Michael Franzese, a member of the Colombo crime family whose leader so at the beginning, challenged the making of The Godfather altogether, explains how secrecy fell to the wayside as the movie gained momentum. Mafiosos started acting and dressing just like that, drawing attention to their occupation in a way unprecedented for the occupation. People were talking about the mafia in a way that they had not for years, and a lot of gangsters liked the attention. Some started dressing in throwback 1950s fashion, while others tailored their speech and their mannerisms to match Marlon Brando's. Its most iconic phrases, going to the mattresses and an offer he can't refuse and sleeping with the fishes. All of these phrases entered international crime culture and lexicon in a lasting way. In more specific actions drawn from the movie, Italian mafia enforcers left the severed head of a donkey as a warning to a baker who refused to pay protection money in 2008. I mean, they took that straight out of
Oh, they couldn't find a horse, or nobody wanted to sacrifice their horse. They're like, let's just do a donkey. Who cares?
Let's just get a donkey. Yeah. As life increasingly imitated art, The Godfather became not only how the public thought about the mafia, but how the mafia thought about the mafia. It became how the mafiosos thought about themselves. And aspiring mobsters took the film as more of an instruction manual than a warning. As former Pennsylvania police officer recounts finding a cherished set of Godfather videos in the home of every mobster's house he ever raided. And even decades later, in 2012, a bust of Al Pacino was found in the home of an Italian mafia boss during a raid. He had a marble bust of Al Pacino made.
I read that there was a mobster, I think it was maybe Italian, I forget where, but a mobster had actually recreated Tony Montana's mansion.
What? Really?
Yeah.
I love geeky, weird stuff like that. That's amazing to me. Oh my gosh, look at this in the chat. Michael Drew, thank you. He says, hey, Michael Franchisi has a YouTube channel. He's a reformed Christian and he's real based. Love his channel. What? Hold on. I got to write this down. I want to check this out. This is thank you, Michael Drew. This is the kind of rabbit hole I like to go down. I appreciate it. Okay. I've got more of this article this whole article is interesting, but I'm going to save it. We can come back to it because I want to get to Scarface.
Yeah, stuff with Scarface. Good old Scarface. Not Italian, but Cuban. So this is a remake of the original one came in 1932, I think. And so initially they were going to do a remake of the original where the main character was Italian, but they got the idea to make him Cuban, a Cuban immigrant that comes over during the Mariel boat lift. And they got Al Pacino. Oliver Stone actually wrote this film, and I'm pretty sure he was high on cocaine when he wrote the film. That's not even a joke. But this movie was probably one of the most controversial gangster films because, and I have an article. We don't even have to pull up the article. The article talks about the divisive reaction between Cubans, Americans, about this film. Some love them, some of them hate that they thought it was promoting stereotypes of Cubans, blaming them for the rising crime rates in Miami that were happening in the 80s. So much like the Italian reaction to the original Scarface, you had a Cuban reaction towards this, negative.
I've got the commercial here, so we presumably don't have to mute it.
Scarface is exhilarating for its vigor and craftsmanship. Al Pacino creates his freshest character in years, says Richard Corliss, Time magazine. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, gives Scarface 4 stars, highest rating. And Vincent Canby, New York Times, says Scarface is stylish and provocative. The most serious film about the American underworld since The Godfather. Al Pacino is Scarface. Rated R. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
I'm surprised Al Pacino hasn't been canceled because of his terrible Cuban accent.
Right?
And I love Al Pacino. He's probably my favorite actor.
This one also had a lot of quotable lines, right? Like, let me introduce you to my little friend. Isn't that this movie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier, so many rappers. I didn't do this, but I thought about putting up a list of just how many references in hip hop there are to just this movie. Even though I think there's one rapper's name is Tony Yayo.
I wonder if.
And then you got the Houston rapper, Scarface. Okay.
Oh, I don't know that rapper.
Yeah. But there's so many references to Scarface.
Well, this relates to what we were talking about. And it's funny because you mentioned at the beginning that story about being in the mall and seeing all the art. It was it was a booth of art of famous Black people, but then it was all these different famous Black people. And then there was one of Scarface. And so this is an article, Why the Hip Hop Community Still Worships Scarface. Opinion, what every rapper loves about Scarface is this. It's the prototypical ghetto American dream. How funny that this sort of intersects with that thesis paper that we read from earlier that was talking about how it's the American dream, but the American dream corrupted. It's not the moral American dream. It's the power American dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the cult film Scarface comes out on Blu-ray DVD on September 6th, I'd like to imagine that Jay-Z will be the first person in line to buy it. That somewhere right now, Jay is marking down the days until he can watch his favorite movie in all of its HD glory. Okay, let's be real. He probably already got his complimentary copy and watched it a couple times with Beyonce, but we can't be mad at Jay-Z for getting the exclusive before the rest of us lay people. Few rappers love the movie Scarface more than Jay-Z. Jay-Z has dedicated countless rap lyrics and interludes to the film, from the intro to his debut album all the way up to the lyrics. Scarface the movie did more than Scarface the rapper for me. Just a rough estimate, but Jay-Z's probably rapped about Scarface on every album he's ever released. I just imagine him at the drawing board, like, I gotta write a new song. It's like, what's this one gonna be about? Scarface.
Well, it's like if I were to do rap or any kind of musical album, every album would have a reference to Star Trek.
Star Trek, yes. Yeah. There'd be an article. It's like, every album Mystery Chris has put out references Star Trek.
Vulcans for life, biatch.
And he's not alone. The hip-hop community has single-handedly made the movie a cult classic. Now Scarface is being re-released on Blu-ray plus a one-night showing in theaters. Naturally, rappers are giddy with excitement. I've never heard rappers described as giddy before.
How embarrassing.
They're so giddy. What is it about that movie? When Scarface came out in 1983, critics were not feeling it. Even though the story of Tony Montana, a poor Cuban immigrant who quickly ascends through the ranks to become a drug kingpin, is actually a remake of a 1932 film of the same name. However, director Brian De Palma's version had an unprecedented amount of violence and dodged an X rating, like you said, after 3 edits. It definitely was not for the masses, but the film found an unlikely home in the Black community. Slowly
Has a lot of violence in it. We love it. Give us more. A lot of people being murdered in horrible, horrible ways. We love it.
Welcome into our home. But the film, I love the way you laugh. Okay. It definitely wasn't for the masses, but the film found an unlikely home in the Black community, slowly becoming a requirement in hip hop references 101. Scarface is loved by rappers with an unwavering devotion that can safely be called obsession. It's so beloved that there's even a documentary about its impact on hip hop. It's called Scarface: Origins of a Hip Hop Classic. Several rappers like Diddy, Snoop Dogg, and Method Man are all in this documentary and talk about the great influence the movie had on their life, their very life. Even Al Pacino himself has attributed Scarface continued success to the hip hop community. Quote, rappers really get it and they understand it. And that's a great thing, Pacino told MTV News. They've been very supportive all these years. I think they've helped us tremendously. What does that say about rappers, though? It was like, if they really get it, they get this, what's being depicted on screen. To the people who don't understand it, Scarface is a movie about a guy with some guns who kills a lot of people and does a lot of drugs. Oh, okay.
It's just a minor thing on the movie. Oh.
Critics say the movie glorifies violence, but to say that is to get distracted by the AK-47s and bowls of cocaine. You don't want to get distracted by the AK-47s and bowls of cocaine. I'm going to try this next time they try and take our guns, by the way, the left. This is from the Grio, which is a left-wing site. Next time they try to come for our guns, I'm going to be like, don't get distracted by the guns. Getting distracted. What every rapper loves about Scarface is this. It's the prototypical ghetto American dream. Tony Montana was a guy who went from nothing and turned it into something. He had a strong work ethic. He was determined to live a better life, a dishwasher who overcame obstacles to live the dream, even if it was rife with blood and illegality. He was a ghetto superhero, turbocharged with testosterone, cocaine, and unlimited rounds of bullets in his gun. And even though he was a crazy character, Tony Montana dropped a lot of gems along the way. Some of his most profound ideology, which most rappers can recite like Bible verses, quote, in this country, you got to make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the women. And all I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. You should probably read these better than me. I always tell the truth, even when I lie, he says. For all his bad behavior, Tony has had a sense of morality. He had a belief system, and he was loyal. And those are things that people tap into, timeless lessons that has helped Scarface endure nearly 30 years later. And the movie still abided by the number one rule of the drug game. Sooner or later, you'll either get caught or die. What was his morality? Oh, go ahead.
Well, he had a sister in there that he didn't want getting tangled up with. One of his associates was his drug lord, because his sister and his mother kind of represent more traditional Cuban Americans that weren't involved in illicit things. And so he kind of wanted, I mean, might have been for more selfish reasons, but he didn't want his friend to, hook up with his sister, which he ends up doing anyway. And Tony kills him. So I'm like, yeah.
I don't know if I would say that's a whole belief system.
No. But the interesting thing too about how a lot of rappers idolize characters like Tony and other mobsters is how in most of these movies it shows these gangsters getting either them or having associates being brutally murdered. And so while you could say, yeah, that's nice that it's glamorizing a way of gaming the system to attain a certain level of material wealth, it still comes at a cost. And that cost is, even if you don't die, associates you are more than likely going to die. And that even if that doesn't happen, still you and your associates are going to always be paranoid that someone's going to try to take your life. They're going to try to take the power from you. And so to me, that would never be something I would ever want to do. Like, I understand, like, people can love the material wealth aspects, but the cost of it is just too high, and I just don't get why people would want to enter that kind of lifestyle, knowing how high that cost is.
I think it's because they think they can beat the system. Like, it's not going to happen to me, even though this very article acknowledges that it's always going to end in your death. You're going to get caught or you're going to die. But you still see people willing to enter into a life of crime or into bad decision after the next, where you just start going down that hill. And then you get, like Jordan Peterson says, if you make one bad decision, one bad choice, then there's going to be fewer good choices to choose from with your next choice. And you might make another bad choice, and then there's going to be fewer good choices, and you're going to keep descending. Whereas if you're making good choices, like if you make a good choice, then you move up a step, then there's more good choices to choose from that come from that. And then more, so you're kind of moving up or down. And if you're entering into a life of drug dealing and crime, and it's just, how's it going to end well? But I think people think, oh, I can beat it.
Yeah.
Here's the last paragraph of this piece. Everyone realizes that Tony Montana was a bad guy, no doubt, but the movie sculpted him into a perfect anti-hero, and you can't help but root for him to get everything he wants. And it doesn't really bother you when he's riddled with bullets by the end, because hell, he went out with a bang. In the end, he succumbs to greed, but for a moment, the world was his, and that's an accomplishment everyone, especially rappers, can admire. Yeah, if you ignore what happened after, like, it's like, we're gonna get up here, and then everything's gonna crash and burn. And guys, it would be like me, alcoholic, right? 5 years sober in October, by the way.
Nice.
Thank you. It would be like me saying, but when it was good, the height of my, when I had that perfect glass of champagne or whatever, and then not looking at what would inevitably always happen after. Like, it's just sort of, I don't know. Humans, we have this ability to lie to ourselves and delude ourselves. If you're watching Scarface, which I'm not saying it's a bad film, I think it's a great film. It's just funny that it's sort of like you watch it and you're like idolizing it. Like, I want to emulate that. What? up until and you think you can freeze it? I'm going to freeze it at the pinnacle, and then I'm never going to have the downfall part. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, because people love the scene where he just goes crazy and starts blowing people up high on cocaine, but then of course he gets shot with like 1 million bullets.
Yeah, it's going to end badly, probably, most likely.
I think you should skip. We were going to talk about The Irishman, but because of time, I think we should skip that. But yeah, Irishman was real quick. Martin Scorsese. I think, was it the last gangster film he did? Because I think it came out 2019, and I think it's the only movie with Pacino, De Niro, and Pesci in it. All three of them, which is surprising. And they're all so old, so they had to de-age them. But Irishman was about a hitman who gets involved with Jimmy Hoffa and is supposedly involved, or was supposedly involved with Jimmy Hoffa's murder, leader of the Teamsters Union, according to, I think it was like a deathbed confession, but who knows. But it was a good movie. I enjoyed that movie. 3 hours long. A lot of people didn't like it because it was so long and stuff, and maybe that has to do with people's shorter attention spans these days, because all these other gangster films are pretty long. But today, when so many movies are short, and people are used to short content, I think a lot of people just couldn't sit still long enough to watch this movie.
This is one I don't think I've seen, so
it's on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. It came out, I think, in theaters and on Netflix at the same time. This was before the pandemic, which is weird, but yeah. But I enjoyed it. I think you should give it a watch. It is weird seeing, even though they're applying the digital de-aging to them, Robert De Niro and Pacino and them still move like 80-year-old men, because they are 80-year-old men. But
yeah, it's also funny that they haven't found a new generation of mobsters. I mean, this has all three of them. This is like Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and are they in every mobster movie?
It seems like it, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I think it seems like the general populace interest in mobster stuff has greatly waned, and I think it has to do with just interest in the mob in general. Because, like I said earlier, the mob still exists, but they're not as powerful as they once were. You don't see as many high-profile murders. It's not like back in the day where you had car bombs and people getting shot in the street. There was a fascination with the real life thing, and of course with the movies, because with Godfather 3 and Miller's Crossing and Goodfellas all came in 1990, which was, I think, the same year John Gotti was sentenced to prison. And so that was coming on the tails of the whole Gotti thing, which he was in love with media coverage and media loved him. And that was just a huge story. And the public was really interested in the mob then, but it's just waned. And I don't think you see as much. I know they still have some shows like, is Peaky Blinders still on? I need to watch that show. I keep
I
saying
think it's still on. Yeah.
still on. And I think, wasn't there a Tom Hardy one? I forget what that was. Check and tell me.
I don't know.
But yeah,
about
other
that.
than that, I can't really think of too many. They had the was it Mini Saints in New York that came out, the Sopranos prequel. But other than that, I can't really think of any other high profile mob stuff that's come out in the last 15 years.
Right. Well, we didn't cover The Sopranos. We were talking about films, but obviously
talking
The
about films.
Sopranos had a huge impact. And then a couple of honorable mentions, because we're trying to keep this show at around about 2 hours. But on your list, you had The Departed, which that's a great film. I love that movie. The Untouchables, One Time in America, Road to Perdition.
Once Upon a Time. Sorry, I should type that up.
Oh,
I meant to type it up.
Oh, Once Upon a Time in America. I don't know that one.
That's Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci's in there. He's a small
Really?
cameo.
Again?
Yeah. That one, real quick. I enjoyed that one up until Robert De Niro's character R words two women in it, because you cross the line. Like we tolerate gangsters as long as they abide by the gangster code, where they only go after other gangsters, because they all agree to play this deadly game. They all know the rules. As long as everybody playing knows the rules, then we as the audience tend to be okay. We tend to not judge it as being really immoral. But once you cross that line and start, harming people outside of that, you risk turning the audience on you. And that was the point of the movie. I understand that, but I still just at that point just got less invested in this character, because any sympathy I had for him was kind of gone after that point.
He sexually assaulted two women in this movie.
Yeah. He's
okay.
Completely sociopathic person. Like, he doesn't know how to.
So he has he doesn't even have the moral code of like Tony Montana. There's no.
Yeah, the all these gangsters in here are just all like straight up psychopaths. Like it's not as glamorous. That's a weird term, but not as glamorous as previous portrayals of the mob, like the Godfather and stuff.
Something that's interesting that's more recent with the mob and popular, but again, it's not film, it's television, was Breaking Bad and then Better Call Saul, which had, the drug kingpins in it, these drug dealers and the mob. And that comes to mind because I'm very late to the game, but I just watched Better Call Saul recently. And something interesting about that that series is that you can see sort of, we're talking about how with these anti-heroes, some of them have their own moral code, but they may not be ethical. And I want to see what you thought of this comparison for young people, maybe, who don't know the difference between morals and ethics. You guys in the chat, tell me if this is a good way of explaining it. So in Better Call Saul, for example, he was a character who had his own moral code, but he wasn't ethical, meaning he would break the law and he would break social rules. He had no problem doing that, but he had a moral code about what was right and wrong. So sometimes he would do the right thing at sacrifice to himself, right? Because it was the right thing. But then there were other characters in that series who were, you could say, were ethical. They followed the law. They followed the social codes. They did everything right. But they didn't have morality. They wouldn't do the right thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good way of describing the difference between the two?
I think so. I have to really write out exactly how I would define each, but based on what you gave, I think that's a fair summation of it.
Well, I did get one thing wrong, apparently. Helena Blavatsky, thank you, Helena. She says, actually, there's no mobs in those shows. It's cartels. Oh, I'm so naive white girl. I thought they were the same thing.
Wow.
Wait, are cartels not mobs? I mean, they are, right? Like, because there's like the whole gang.
Italian,
right?
or Irish.
Oh, because they're not Italian?
Yeah. I forgot Boardwalk Empire, by the way, which I love.
Oh, yeah. She says because they're not Italian. Well, yeah, because we kind of touched on Scarface, and then my mind just was like, eh. But yeah, you're right. There have not been as many Italian mobs in popular culture of late.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pick which one of these funny things you want to show.
Show the Mad TV one.
Okay. Okay, before I cue that up, if you're new here, Mystery Chris and I like to end the episodes with a couple funny things. One of them is a game we play called Is There a Tattoo of That? Do you want to sing it?
I don't remember. What was it? How does the song go? Does it
I think
just change every episode?
It changes every episode.
Is that a tattoo? All right. Yeah. My hair metal voice.
Do it in a 1920s mobster voice.
Night a mobster. Is that a tattoo of that? No.
There we go. Godfather tattoos. It's a thing, of course. Of course. You know there would be Godfather tattoos.
Yep. I'm surprised there
Wow.
are black arms and legs, though.
Wow. Look at some of these. I mean, this one here of Marlon Brando's face in the black and white, second from the right, that one's really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. All these look pretty good, actually.
I bet these you could just scroll for days and there's Godfather related tattoos for days because people love this movie so much.
Notice no Godfather 3 tattoos.
There's one. Okay. Yeah.
It'd be funny if someone got a tattoo of Sofia Coppola's character, Mary Corleone.
Well, somebody got the horse head. Look at that. It's a horse head with blood and it says an offer you can't refuse. They got a tattoo of that. Wow, look at all the characters there on the left.
Oh. Those kids at the top.
Yeah.
I guess that's kids.
It's just commitment, man. Okay, well, there is a tattoo of that. There you go.
Yes.
Let's see. This one is going to be interesting, I think. Now, you searched for Joe Pesci himself. How many people have tattoos of Joe Pesci? Well, turns out a lot of people.
Are there any Home Alone ones in there? Is this a Mobster one? Oh, there's one. There's one. Nice.
Why?
That guy wins.
Why? Look,
it's funny to think about because Home Alone came out the same year as Goodfellas. And so Joe Pesci went from playing this violent, psychopathic mobster murderer to playing some thief who gets his head set on fire by a child. Like, it's so weird, the complete difference in tone of movies in 1990. But both were huge. Both were still movies people love to watch and quote to this day.
This is just, I mean, some of these are not good. Look at this one here on the left.
Oh.
Yeah, like some are not. I mean,
It's got some facial skin disease or something.
Yeah, this one here is not great either. Second from the right.
Again, how do you explain this to like someone you're on a date? Like, what do you have a picture of Joe Pesci? And like if it's a young person too, like if they're going on a date, the woman probably not going to know Joe Pesci is, or at least this mobster characters are. She'll be like, "Who is that?" You have to explain. Like, why do you have a strange white man on your body?
especially if you have the Home Alone Joe Pesci. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, still here.
Something happened to my computer. Like a little voice just came out and said, I can't help you with that on Mac.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's like an Alexa or something. I don't have an Alexa. I don't know what that was.
Not Joe
Anyway.
Pesci, is it? Oh.
No. Stop criticizing Joe Pesci tattoos.
Joe Pesci. He was in a Michael Jackson video. Never forget. Scary, scary ass Moonwalker video. Gave me nightmares as a kid.
Now you put an interesting one in here at the end. You put John Gotti.
Yeah, real mobster.
So were you just curious to see if anybody got a real mobster tattooed?
Yeah.
And
which I know people have Capone, obviously, but Gotti, I was a little surprised. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but because I know he was in the news, talked about it a lot, but he doesn't seem like he has quite the same stature as like Capone and Lucky Luciano and others.
This is crazy. Look, some people have an entire New York Times newspaper with John Gotti's face tattooed on their arm. Like right there. Look at that. New York Times right in the center. This one's a little shocking to me. I don't know why this is showing up in the search results, but look at that Jim Keri from Dumb and Dumber.
I love it.
What if you had John Gotti on one calf and you had Jim Keri from Dumb and Dumber on the other one, and you're on that first date, and she's like, "Explain your tattoos."
This represents my fun side. This represents my intense, angry side.
So silly. Oh, hey, Super Bass is here. Super Bass, our membership fairy, just gifted 10 Deprogrammed memberships. Woohoo! Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your generosity. And anybody who wants to grab those up, I appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to end with a funny clip. Do you think we can get away with playing this? We've played Mad TV.
Yeah, it's
before,
Mad TV.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Played it last week.
So we usually end on something funny but related to the topic, and Mr. Chris finds really funny clips.
This is probably my favorite one of my favorite Mad TV skits. This is for PAX. I think it was it's an old channel. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore, but it was like, I think it's a religious channel or just maybe a more wholesome channel that played wholesome content. And so the whole joke of this skit is if they bought the rights to Sopranos and cut out all the violent sexual parts to air it on this channel. And so I just love this skit, and Will Sasso is just fantastic.
The syndicated television debut of The Sopranos. This program has been edited for content.
Who ate all the gabagool?
No more gabagool for you. The doctor said it's bad for you.
I don't give a f. Gabagool?
What am I, your servant?
You know what? I don't need this shit.
You want some gabagool? Why don't you get it from one of your little Russian who?
Tell you what, why don't you stop breaking my ball?
Let's talk about your anger towards your mother.
Anger? Anger? Anger what?
Well, you're clearly angry at her.
Yeah, no shin genius insight. Hey, Charles, let me tell you something. I didn't have anger at her, all right? I hated that bitch.
Let's explore this.
I tell you what, you know what? Why don't you explore this? Getting better things to do and sit around here all day.
They're both so good. The
Yes.
Mad TV comedians were such good mimics.
I know.
Such
Will
good mimics.
Sasso. I'm sad he doesn't have a bigger career.
Yeah.
Yakking about my mother. See you next week.
See you next week.
Meadow, tell your father about your grades. I'm not talking to him. He's a
Hey, watch your fuck.
I'm a racist
Over here, dating your mother into my house. You just try. You bring that mother.
But I hope you're happy.
Where's the gabagool?
Please give me a chance. Don't do this.
Shut up, you
miserable piece of shit.
What's the matter with you, huh? You think you can? He was a made man. You rat. Can't even look at you. Take him out, big pussy.
My pleasure.
Who's hungry? Oh, I could eat.
How about some nice gabagool, Tony?
Push! We don't got any gabagool, okay? So shut the
All right already. What do you got to break my book?
Come on, Richard.
Tune in next week from 9 o'clock.
Oh, such a genius skit.
It's
Oh,
the whole show. There you go.
yeah.
In a nutshell. Censored.
What's the gabagool? I always say that to myself.
Oh, Alan Scott says, good show. Kind of hard to follow. Texas Sheep Lady. Hey, good to see you. She says, I just got a notification of your live stream just now. Man, that sucks. I know this keeps happening. If it's happening to you, if you're watching this later, would you drop a comment and let me know? I'm just curious. I don't know if it's widespread or not. That a lot of people don't get the notifications even though they're signed up for them. So that's kind of a bummer. But thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a comment. If there's anything you wanted to correct us on or anything you think we missed out on or anything interesting or anything you disagree with, feel free to leave it below and hit the like button and all the things. And we will be back. We do this show every other Wednesday, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. And what else? Do you have any announcements to make, sir?
Nope.
No announcements. Thank you, Super Based, again for the memberships. People were saying thank you so much. I'll just remind you guys tomorrow, book club, 6 o'clock Central Time. If you want to be a part of the discussion, email me at deprogrammedpod@gmail.com. Email me tonight, and I've already sent the link out to several people. We're going to be talking at 6 o'clock Central tomorrow about the queering of the American child, and it's a private video stream. So, if you want to be on camera, feel free. If you don't want to show your face, feel free, whatever you want. And then also this Saturday, I'm very likely I'm going to be in Dallas for the Ripiverse meetup at FNT and Geeks and Gamers and all those guys. I'm very excited. I always love those meetups, and I hope I get to see some of you there in person. So I've hit my 2-hour limit of my bladder only lasts 2 hours.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, can you tell? Like a Muppet. How do you know? But right? My husband always knows. He's like, your bladder.
Gotta relieve my bladder.
Yeah.
Hey.
Rib Rascal says, well, get out of here.
Get out of here. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Take care.
Bye.